Hello. We've had an exciting day here at the youth camp, and it's late afternoon. We're going to have the church service at 7, and so I'm going to try to get this Granny Shares the Bible for you before then. So we're going to start in Genesis chapter 12 and verse 6. And verse 5 said, "They went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came." Canaan land is just in sight. Remember, that's a song that we used to sing. Canaan land is just in sight. And we all think of Canaan land as the promised land, and it is the promised land for the Jews. It was. But they call it Canaan land because that's where Canaan, Ham's son, settled. And Canaan was the one that was cursed. So it wasn't going to be his land for long now that God already knew that it was going to be the land for the Jews. He was going to give it to the Jews, give it to Abraham's seed. And now we're talking about Abraham, but we're only calling him Abram because he hasn't had a change of name yet. "And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sichem, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land." So they possessed that land. "And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land." Now, who owns everything? We think, oh, that's my property. That's the property that we own. You know, this is our property. But when you get right down to it, we don't own anything, do we? It's God's. All of this world is God's. And God is able to give it to whom he pleases. And he said, "Unto thy seed will I give this land." And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. So Abram, coming out of the land of Ur of the Chaldees, was a worshiper of the one true and the living God. The reason places like the Ur of the Chaldees and other countries that were started by men after Noah and came out of the ark with his sons, the reason that they had to have all kinds of gods was because none of them were true and real. Once a person knows the true and the living God, there's no room for any other gods. He's the only God. The devil might try to make it look like that there are other gods in this world, but once you know the true and the living God, you have no even thought of serving any other God, because there are no such things. We know they're inventions of the devil. The devil wants us to serve other gods besides our God, but no, we're not going to do it. And our God owns everything. And Abram knew it, and he built an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. So Abram was only interested in worshiping the true and the living God. He'd come out of the place where they worshiped all those other gods, because God called him out of that place. "And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord." So Abram was living in Canaan land. He had moved there, and he was living there. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. So he was going toward the maybe looking all the land over that God had promised he'd give him. And there was a famine in the land. And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. Now, from what I gather, the land of Canaan was not thickly populated, probably didn't have real big towns where you could go and maybe buy food. And so Abram went down to Egypt where he could buy food. It's almost like the way it happened later on in the book of Genesis when it has to do with famine and Joseph. But Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, to travel around in that place so he could have food to eat and food for his cattle and food for his whole family. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, that thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. So Abram was 75, and Sarai was 10 years younger than him, I believe, and so that makes her 65. We'll learn about their ages in a little later on, because it seems like she was 90 when Abram was 100. So she was 10 years younger than him. So at 65, he said she was a fair woman to look upon. It's different now, isn't it? Somebody wouldn't worry about a 65-year-old woman being somebody that another man might want. Maybe that happens, I don't know, but it doesn't seem that way to me. But Sarai must have been very beautiful, and Abram was afraid of the Egyptians, afraid what they would do to him if they saw her and saw that she was his wife. They might kill him to have her. Wow. And it came to pass that when Abram was come to Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. She must have been beautiful. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. So they're claiming that she's just Abram's sister. What was wrong with him taking her? Well, if she didn't want to go, there was something wrong taking her. But I don't know. I don't know if they just said, all right, come with us. And she had to. And Abram just standing there. I don't know. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men servants and maid servants and she-asses and camels. So they take Sarai and bring back all these animals. Sheep, oxen, asses, men servants, maid servants. I mean, those are people, and she-asses and camels. So here comes presents for her brother because of Sarai. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. Here Pharaoh's getting plagued. He's going to get plagued later on too. Not the same one, but it's going to happen because of God's bride, God's people. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? And why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister, so I might have taken her to me to wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. So, how did Pharaoh find out? Well, there's lots of men servants and maid servants, and they know everything. And there's a grapevine. There's always a grapevine. You know, I heard it on the grapevine. That was before cell phones, and even before the phones we had when we were kids, those rotary phones and all that. Actually, we didn't start out with a rotary one. We started out on a party line without a dial on it. That was interesting. But all the way into cell phones now, they didn't need any of that because people talked. I'm sure that's how he found it out. And probably that's how he found out what had caused him such grief, what kind of plagues were happening, because Abram was somebody special to God. And he said, "What is this that thou hast done unto me?" And was it Abram that was doing it to him? Well, in a roundabout way it was, but this was God protecting Sarai and protecting Abram. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. So it doesn't look like they took it back. Doesn't look like they took back all the things that Pharaoh gave. It seems like they just sent them off, gave him back his wife, said, "Now therefore behold thy wife, take her and go thy way." Hey, looks like it's going to happen that way later on, isn't it? Pharaoh saying, "Take her, take them, take her, take all of them, take your cattle, take everything. Just get away from us." Yeah, it's in Exodus that happens, but it's a different Pharaoh. But sometimes in the Bible things happen, and it seems like it's a foreshadowing of what's going to happen. And so that's where that came from. And we're going to go on into chapter 13 because I've got a few minutes, and let's see what happens next. "And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him, into the south." When it says into the south, it doesn't mean he went south of Egypt. It means he went into the south of the land that God had given him. "And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold." So Pharaoh had really laid it on that brother of Sarai. But when the brother turned out to be the husband, he made him leave. Sounds like he kept everything. "And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord." Now, we're going to stop right there as far as going any farther, because I want to talk about Abram calling upon the name of the Lord. He built an altar over there in chapter 12 we were reading. He built an altar there at near Bethel and Hai, and it says, "and called upon the name of the Lord." And then it says on chapter 13 and verse 4, he came to the same place he had been at the beginning, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. So if we go back to where Adam and Eve had Seth, let's go back there, where Adam and Eve had Seth, and the end, let's see, the end of chapter 4, is it? Yeah, yes. "And to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord." That's that little phrase there, call upon the name of the Lord. It sounds like that was a special thing that people did when they believed in the true and the living God. They called on his name. They called on him. And they wanted to be with him. They wanted to commune with him. They wanted to talk to him. And remember when Cain and Abel, the story about them where it seemed like that God was talking right to Cain, that he was able to hear him speaking, hear him talking. And then when it talks about when Seth, let's go back there. Where the Bible says that that they had another child from Cain and Abel. Abel was dead. Cain was gone away. And they had another child, and they called him Seth. And Seth had another son named Enos. And then they began to call on the name of the Lord. So they were trying to get in touch with the Lord, trying to be with him when Enos was born. And now here's Abram doing the same thing, trying to be with the Lord, wanting to be with the Lord. And Abram, of course, the Lord spoke to Abram. He got him to come out of the land of Ur of the Chaldees and even away from his father and Haran and call on the name of the Lord. So here we are, and we're calling on the name of the Lord every day. We're calling on his name, and we're asking him for help and asking him to be with us and show us things and tell us things. And the Bible teaches us to call on his name. Well, I'm run out of time, and I'm going to start again tomorrow in chapter 13. And God bless y'all, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.